would you like the ability to take a risk and pull whatever crazy daredevil stunt you want, then hit Control Z and change reality? It's no secret that the Uchiha Dojutsu are some seriously god-tier moves. But what you might not know is that the Sharingan are inspired by some of the most famous members of the Shinto pantheon. Hi, I'm Kay, and welcome to my channel Eat, Pray, Anime, where we'll explore the religious history and culture behind the magic of Japanese popular culture. This episode is part one of a series taking a deep dive into the Japanese mythology behind some of the Naruto universe's most powerful jutsu. There's definitely more than meets the eye to the Uchiha clan's bloodline and the Sharingan, their Dojutsu Kekkei Genkai, or hereditary techniques. One of the three great Dojutsu, or eye techniques, the Sharingan, translated as the copy wheel or mirror wheel eye, manifests when the wielder experiences extreme emotional distress and affects their ocular nerve, creating the tomoe or comma-shaped swirl on the iris. The Sharingan jutsu allows the wielder to use the eye of insight, affording them supernatural perception, and the eye of hypnosis to control the thoughts and actions of their opponents. The Sharingan is primarily bound to the bloodline of the Uchiha clan, but it is possible to transplant those eyes into another. Here's where things start to get really interesting for a religious studies nerd like me. There is a pair of special techniques for Sharingan wielders called Izanagi and Izanami that are named after a heavenly couple of Shinto deities called Kami. And to learn more about their origin, we need to turn to two of Japan's earliest historical records, the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki. Okay, so a little bit of background. The Kojiki, or the Records of Ancient Matters, was presented to the Yamato court in 712 CE, commissioned by the Yamato Emperor. This text selectively combines myths and legends from the so-called Age of the Gods and histories of the former Yamato emperors. At the same time that the Kojiki was being written, a second text called the Nihon Shoki, or the Chronicles of Japan, was being written and was presented to the Yamato court in 720 CE. There are some differences between the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, but the majority of the content is very similar. It's important to note that these texts are inherently biased. They were commissioned by the Yamato emperors in order to legitimate their rule by connecting the imperial line to powerful kami, specifically the sun goddess Amaterasu, which I'll talk more about in the next episode. The gods that the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki talk about are called kami in Japanese. Kami are divine spirits that inhabit our world. Many kami have names and personalities, but it's said that there are millions of kami that manifest in natural features such as rivers, waterfalls, trees, rocks, and mountains. Unlike the transcendent God that we see in monotheistic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, kami are immanent, meaning that they exist within and throughout the same world that we live in. They're not omnipotent or strictly good or evil, but they do have extraordinary powers to create and protect, as well as to destroy and to punish. Ritual worship or veneration of these kami is thousands of years old and lies at the heart of the Japanese religious tradition we know today as Shinto. If you'd like to learn more about Shinto, please check out my series on the Religion for Breakfast channel, which you can find up here. According to the mythological accounts in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, the kami Izanagi and Izanami were a husband-wife, brother-sister duo who helped to create the world as we know it. Standing on the bridge of heaven, they stirred the primordial waters with a jeweled spear, and the salt or silt that dripped down from the spear's tip created the first islands of the archipelago we now call Japan. Izanagi and Izanami had many divine children, but eventually Izanami died giving birth to the fire kami Kagutsuchi and traveled to the land of the dead called Yomi. Much like the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, Izanagi is heartbroken and travels to the land of Yomi to restore Izanami back to life. But unfortunately, he's too late. Izanami has already eaten the food of the land of Yomi and now belongs to the world of shadows. She begs Izanagi not to try to look at her in the dark and goes to talk to the lords of Yomi to ask their permission to go back to the land of the living. Unfortunately, Izanagi isn't able to wait patiently, and he lights a torch in order to go after her. When Izanagi finally sees Izanami in the light, he is horrified to see her decomposing body, covered in maggots and the 8 thunder kami known as Raijin. Shamed by her husband's unfaithful gaze and robbed of her opportunity to return to the land of the living, Izanami sends Raijin and the demon hags of Yomi after Izanagi, who manages to escape and seals up the entrance to the land of the dead with a boulder. Izanami is furious and vows to take 1,000 human lives per day in revenge, while Izanagi boasts that he'll create 1,500 human lives every day in order to balance the scales. Izanagi and Izanami are often popularly compared to the biblical figures Adam and Eve, but I don't really see much similarity. Adam and Eve are the first humans in creation, but Izanagi and Izanami are actually part of the last 7th generation of primordial creation kami. Unlike the story of Adam and Eve's original sin, there's little value judgment to be found in the story of Izanagi and Izanami, except for some gender norms which dictate that Izanagi should go first in order to produce children successfully. Otherwise, it's not Izanami's fault that she dies during childbirth, and Izanagi's heroic quest to rescue her is relatable. But both the stories of Adam and Eve and Izanagi and Izanami are cosmogonies, myths that try to explain the origin of the world as we know it. And both offer some clues as to why humans experience suffering and death. Adam and Eve are cast out of paradise for breaking God's one commandment and become mortal, susceptible to suffering and death. Similarly, even a kami as great and powerful as Izanami experiences death, and there's no coming back from that. It's a fact of existence that every day humans experience birth and death. In Naruto, the Sharingan technique Izanagi is named after the kami's creative powers and has the ability to decide the difference between illusion and reality. For example, if a Sharingan wielder was injured in a fight, they could activate the Izanagi technique and rewrite their personal reality and escape their fate, at the cost of going blind in the eye that activated the jutsu. We see this in the case of Madara Uchiha, who used Izanagi to rewrite his death at the hands of Hashirama Senju at the cost of his right eye and escape into hiding, where he planned to forcibly bring peace to the world by using the moon to activate infinite Tsukiyomi. Because of how powerful and tempting using Izanagi is to escape the consequences of one's actions, the Uchiha clan creates the Izanami technique as its equal opposite. Again, in exchange for the sight of the eye that activates the technique, Izanami is designed to keep the Uchiha clan humble and honorable. It allows the user to trap the opponent in an infinite loop of a particular moment or series of moments in the hopes that this experience will cause them to accept reality as it is in order to break the illusion. Essentially, Izanami is designed to deter and punish the reckless use of Izanagi and allow the wielder to come to terms with fate, even if it means death, not out of vengeance, but out of concern and compassion. Naori Uchiha, whose given name means recovery, is the first to exhibit control of the Izanami Kinjutsu and uses it to save her friend Naka Uchiha from his own hubris in using Izanagi to determine fate. Itachi Uchiha also uses Izanami and sacrifices his left eye to trap the monstrous synthesis of Kabuto Yakushi and Lord Orochimaru in a loop of never-ending defeat until he finally comes to grip with his true identity as simply Kabuto. Knowing more about the myths in the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki, we can start to see that the Izanagi and Izanami jutsu are two sides of the same OP coin. The kami Izanami sometimes gets a bad rap in anime and video games like Persona 4, where she's represented as the demonic queen of the underworld. But the Naruto storyline actually preserves Izanami's dignity in the myths. Izanami knows the consequences of death and accepts the rules of the land of Yomi. It's actually her husband Izanagi who's unable to deal with his grief and accept reality. Even when Izanagi might have a chance to alter fate and restore Izanami to life, he gives in to temptation and recklessness and tries to take matters into his own hands, consequences be damned. Ultimately, we see that even a kami as great and powerful Izanagi cannot alter destiny. That's it for this episode of Eat, Pray, Anime. Part 2 will cover the Mangekyo Sharingan of Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, and Susanoo. If you've enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe and let me know in the comments what videos you'd like to see next. Until next time, make sure to eat, pray, and of course, watch anime.